The gunshot that shattered the morning silence wasn't meant for Amelia Johnson, but it might as well have been, because that's when she knew her husband would kill her if she ever tried to leave. She stood in the kitchen of their small ranch house on the outskirts of Florissant, Colorado, her hands trembling as she gripped the edge of the cast-iron stove. Through the window, she could see Marcus, her husband of 3 years, standing in the yard with his pistol still raised, smoke curling from the barrel. The neighbor's dog lay dead in the dirt, its only crime being that it had wandered onto their property and knocked over a bucket. Marcus turned toward the house, and even from this distance, Amelia could see the cold satisfaction in his eyes. It was April of 1878, and the mountain town of Florissant was experiencing one of its gentler springs. The snow had melted weeks earlier than usual, and the valley was already showing hints of green. But inside Amelia's world, there was no spring, no renewal, only the endless winter of a marriage that had become her prison. She had been 19 when she married Marcus Johnson, the son of a wealthy cattle rancher from Denver who had purchased land near Florissant to expand his holdings. Marcus had been charming during their brief courtship, attentive and generous with gifts and compliments. Her parents, struggling farmers who had lost nearly everything to drought and debt, had been thrilled when he asked for her hand. They saw him as their daughter's salvation, a way out of poverty and hardship. They hadn't seen what Amelia discovered on their wedding night. The charm vanished the moment they were alone. Marcus was controlling, possessive, and cruel. He monitored her every movement, forbade her from going into town without him, and flew into violent rages over the smallest perceived infractions. He had never struck her, not yet, but the threat was always there, hovering in the air like a thundercloud ready to burst. She had tried to leave once, 6 months into their marriage. She had packed a small bag and walked the 3 miles to town, planning to take the stagecoach to Denver where she had a cousin. Marcus had found her before she made it to the station. He hadn't raised his voice, hadn't made a scene. He had simply taken her arm, led her home, and then spent the next hour describing in vivid detail what would happen to her and to her parents if she ever tried something like that again. He would ruin her father, he said calmly, buy up their debt and foreclose on their small farm. He would make sure everyone knew what kind of wife she was, abandoning her marriage vows. He would find her no matter where she went, because she was his property, bought and paid for. The door creaked open and Marcus walked in, holstering his gun. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered and handsome in a cold, angular way. His dark hair was always perfectly combed, his clothes always immaculate. He looked at her with those pale blue eyes that never seemed to hold any warmth. "That dog has been coming around here for weeks," he said matter-of-factly, as if he had just completed a routine chore. "I warned Peterson to keep his animals on his own land." Amelia said nothing. She had learned that silence was often the safest response. "You are making breakfast?" he asked, moving closer to inspect the stove. "Yes," she said quietly. "Eggs and bacon. It will be ready soon." He stood behind her close enough that she could feel his presence like a physical weight. "Good. I have business in town today. You will stay here and work on the mending. I noticed yesterday that 2 of my shirts have loose buttons." "Yes, Marcus." He reached out and touched her hair, and she fought the urge to flinch. "You are a good wife when you remember your place, Amelia. I would hate for you to forget again." After he left for town an hour later, Amelia allowed herself to breathe. These moments alone were her only respite, brief islands of peace in a sea of anxiety. She went about her chores mechanically, her mind far away, dreaming of a different life, a different world where she was free. She was hanging laundry on the line behind the house when she saw the rider approaching. She recognized him immediately, even from a distance. Xander Quinn, the cowboy who worked on the neighboring ranch. He had been in Florissant for about 2 years, having come west from Missouri after the war. She had only spoken to him a handful of times, brief exchanges when he had come to their property on ranch business, or when she had seen him in town. But there was something about him that had always struck her. He had kind eyes, warm brown eyes that seemed to actually see her, not just look through her or at her the way Marcus did. Xander rode up slowly, removing his hat as he approached. He was about 26, she guessed, with sun-weathered skin and dark hair that was slightly too long. He sat his horse with the easy confidence of a man who had spent most of his life in the saddle. "Morning, Mrs. Johnson," he said, his voice low and respectful. "I hope I am not disturbing you." "Good morning, Mr. Quinn," she replied, keeping her voice neutral, pleasant but distant. "My husband is in town. If you need to speak with him, he should be back this afternoon." "Actually, I was hoping to speak with you if you have a moment," he said, dismounting. He kept a respectful distance, holding his hat in his hands. "I wanted to offer my condolences about what happened this morning." Amelia felt her face flush. "I do not understand." "The dog," Xander said quietly. "He belonged to old Charlie Peterson, who works on our ranch. Charlie is pretty broken up about it. That dog was his only companion since his wife passed." Shame washed over Amelia, even though she had done nothing wrong. "I am very sorry," she said softly. "I did not know. The dog was just here, and Marcus, he does not like animals on our property." "I know it was not your doing, madam," Xander said quickly. "Charlie knows it too. I just wanted to tell you because I know you have a kind heart and I thought you would want to know." Amelia looked up at him, surprised by his words. A kind heart. When was the last time anyone had attributed any quality to her, seen her as more than just Marcus Johnson's wife? "Thank you for telling me," she said. "I wish there was something I could do." "Your sympathy means more than you know," Xander said. He started to turn back to his horse, then paused. "Mrs. Johnson, I hope you will forgive my boldness, but are you all right? You look like you have not been sleeping well." The genuine concern in his voice nearly broke her. She wanted to tell him everything, to pour out all the fear and loneliness and desperation that she carried every moment of every day. But she knew she could not. Any hint of impropriety, any suggestion that she had complained to another man about her marriage, would give Marcus an excuse for the violence she knew was always simmering beneath his surface. "I am fine, Mr. Quinn," she said, forcing a smile. "Just tired from the spring cleaning." "Thank you for your concern." He studied her for a long moment, and she had the uncomfortable feeling that he could see right through her lie, but he nodded and put his hat back on. "If you ever need anything, Mrs. Johnson, anything at all, the Henderson Ranch is just over the ridge. Someone there can always get word to me." "That is very kind, but I am certain that will not be necessary." He mounted his horse and tipped his hat to her once more before riding away. Amelia watched him go, her heart aching with a longing she did not dare name. That night, Marcus returned home in a foul mood. Some business deal had not gone his way, and he spent the evening pacing the small house like a caged animal, drinking whiskey and muttering about incompetent partners and fools who did not recognize opportunity when it was handed to them. Amelia made herself as small and quiet as possible, serving his dinner and then retreating to her sewing, trying to be invisible. "Someone came by today," Marcus said suddenly, his voice cutting through the silence like a knife. Amelia's blood went cold. Had someone seen Xander visit? "Oh," she said, keeping her eyes on her needlework. "Peterson, that old fool who lets his animals run wild. He came crying to me about his dog, wanted me to pay him for it, can you imagine? I sent him away with nothing, of course. The man is lucky I do not demand compensation for the trespassing." "Yes, Marcus," Amelia said softly. "Did anyone else come by?" She hesitated for only a fraction of a second, but it was enough. Marcus was on his feet, crossing the room in 3 long strides. He grabbed her wrist, not hard enough to bruise, but hard enough to hurt. "I asked you a question, Amelia." "One of the cowboys from the Henderson ranch stopped by," she said quickly. "He was looking for you about some business matter. I told him you were in town." "Which cowboy?" "I do not know his name. I had not seen him before." Marcus released her wrist and stepped back, studying her face. She kept her expression blank, innocent. After a long moment, he seemed satisfied. "Good," he said. "Remember, Amelia, you are to speak to no one without my permission. Your reputation is a reflection on me, and I will not have it tarnished by idle gossip or inappropriate associations." "Yes, Marcus." The weeks that followed were much the same, an endless cycle of walking on eggshells, trying to anticipate Marcus's moods and avoid triggering his anger. But something had changed inside Amelia. The brief conversation with Xander Quinn had awakened something in her, some small spark of hope or defiance that she had thought Marcus had completely extinguished. She found herself thinking about him at odd moments, remembering the kindness in his eyes, the genuine concern in his voice. It was dangerous and foolish, she knew, but she could not help it. She saw him again 3 weeks later in town. Marcus had taken her to purchase supplies, one of his rare gestures toward normal married life, though she knew it was really just because he wanted to show her off, to remind the town that she belonged to him. She was standing outside the general store while Marcus conducted business inside when Xander came walking down the main street. He saw her and nodded politely, clearly intending to keep walking, but she found herself speaking before she could think better of it. "Mr. Quinn, how is Mr. Peterson? I have thought of him often." Xander stopped and came closer, removing his hat. "He is managing, thank you for asking. Your kindness in inquiring would mean a lot to him." They stood there for a moment, neither quite knowing what to say. Amelia was acutely aware of the people passing by, the eyes that might be watching. But she also felt something else, a warmth spreading through her chest, a feeling she had almost forgotten existed. "Are you well, Mrs. Johnson?" Xander asked quietly. "I am," she said, and for a moment, standing there in the sunlight with this kind man looking at her with such gentle concern, it was almost true. Marcus emerged from the store at that moment, his eyes immediately finding Amelia and then moving to Xander. His expression darkened. "Quinn," he said coldly, "what business do you have with my wife?" Xander met his gaze steadily, showing no fear. "No business, Mr. Johnson. I was just passing by and offered a greeting. Good manners, nothing more. My wife does not need your greetings," Marcus said. "Come, Amelia." As they walked away, Marcus's hand tight on her elbow, Amelia could feel Xander's eyes on her back. That night, Marcus questioned her extensively about her conversation with Xander, and she repeated the same story, that it had been nothing, just a polite greeting, no different from greeting anyone else in town. Marcus seemed satisfied, but he also seemed more watchful, more suspicious. Summer came to Florissant, bringing hot days and cool mountain nights. The valley bloomed with wildflowers, and the air was sweet with the scent of pine and sage. It would have been beautiful if Amelia had been free to enjoy it, but her world remained the same, confined to the ranch and the few supervised trips to town. She saw Xander occasionally, always from a distance. Sometimes she would catch sight of him riding along the ridge line between their ranch and the Henderson property. Once, she saw him in town, helping an elderly woman carry her packages. He always seemed to be helping someone, she noticed, always patient and kind. She tried not to watch for him, tried not to let herself think about him, but it was like trying not to breathe. In August, Marcus's father came to visit from Denver. Harrison Johnson was a hard man, cut from the same cloth as his son but older and even more ruthless. He looked at Amelia like she was livestock he was evaluating, commenting to Marcus that she looked thin and asking if she was fulfilling her wifely duties. "She is barren," Marcus said coldly, as if Amelia were not sitting right there at the table with them. 3 years and no children. "I begin to think I was sold damaged goods." The words cut deeper than any physical blow could have. Amelia kept her eyes down, fighting back tears. It was not her fault, she knew. Marcus barely touched her, and when he did, it was with such cold calculation that it made her skin crawl. But she could not say that, could not defend herself without making everything worse. "Give it time," Harrison said dismissively. "She is young, but if she proves unable to give you an heir, you may need to consider other options." After Harrison left the next day, Marcus was in one of his darkest moods. He paced the house, drinking and muttering about disappointments and failures. Amelia tried to stay out of his way, but there was nowhere to hide in the small house. "You are an embarrassment to me," he said, cornering her in the kitchen. "My father thinks I am weak for not being able to control my own wife, for not having produced an heir by now." "I am sorry, Marcus," she whispered. "Sorry is not enough," he said, and for the first time he raised his hand to her. She flinched, waiting for the blow, but it never came. Instead, he grabbed a plate from the counter and smashed it against the wall, inches from her head. Shards of pottery rained down on her. "Clean that up," he said, his voice deadly calm. "And remember, Amelia, that you exist at my pleasure. You are nothing without me. No one would want you, no one would help you. You are mine, and you will be mine until the day you die." That night, after Marcus had drunk himself into a stupor and fallen asleep in his chair, Amelia sat by the window and looked out at the stars. She thought about running, about just walking out the door and keeping going until she found a new life somewhere far away. But where would she go? Marcus had been right about that much. She had no money, no resources, no skills that would allow her to support herself. And he would find her, she was sure of it. He would track her down and make her pay, and he would hurt her parents in the process. She was trapped, as surely as if she were locked in a cell. The seasons turned. Fall brought golden aspens to the mountain slopes and crisp air that smelled of smoke and earth. Marcus's mood seemed to improve slightly with the cooler weather, or perhaps he was just focused on other things, preparing for winter and managing the ranch hands who worked their property. It was late October when Xander Quinn came to their ranch again, this time with legitimate business. He and another cowboy from the Henderson ranch were helping to drive cattle to winter pasture, and some of the herd had strayed onto the Johnson property. Marcus was home when they arrived, and he gave permission for them to retrieve the cattle, but his manner was cold and suspicious. Amelia watched from the window as the cowboys worked, expertly cutting out the Henderson cattle from the small herd that grazed in their north pasture. Xander sat his horse with easy grace, working in perfect harmony with the animal beneath him. She found herself memorizing the way he moved, storing up the image like a treasure to be examined later in private. As they were preparing to leave, one of the Henderson cattle, a young heifer, got spooked and bolted, crashing through the fence near the house. Xander went after her, but the animal was panicked and running blind. Before anyone could react, the heifer charged straight toward Amelia, who had stepped out onto the porch. Everything happened in seconds. Amelia froze, unable to move. The heifer was nearly upon her when Xander rode between them, turning the animal at the last possible moment. But the heifer's shoulder caught Amelia anyway, knocking her off her feet and sending her sprawling into the dirt. She heard shouting, felt hands lifting her, and then she was looking up into Xander's face. He had dismounted and was kneeling beside her, his hands gentle as he checked her for injuries. "Are you hurt?" he asked urgently. "Can you move? Say something, please." "I am all right," she managed, though her ribs ached and her head was spinning. "Just got the wind knocked out of me." Marcus was suddenly there, pushing Xander aside roughly. "Get your hands off my wife. This is your fault, Quinn. Your animal nearly killed her." "I am deeply sorry, Mr. Johnson," Xander said, standing but not backing down. "It was an accident. The heifer got spooked, but Mrs. Johnson seems to be uninjured." "Get off my property," Marcus said coldly, "and take your damned cattle with you. If I see any of your animals on my land again, I will shoot them." Xander looked like he wanted to say more, his eyes moving to Amelia with clear concern, but he nodded and returned to his horse. Within minutes, he and his companion had gathered the stray cattle and driven them away. Marcus hauled Amelia to her feet and marched her inside. "I saw the way he looked at you," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I saw the way he touched you." "Marcus, he was just making sure I was not hurt," Amelia protested. "You encouraged this," Marcus continued, as if she had not spoken. "You have been trying to catch his attention, haven't you? Parading yourself around, hoping he would notice you." "No, Marcus, I have not, I swear." He grabbed her face, forcing her to look at him. "If I ever see you speak to that man again, if I ever see you so much as look at him, I will kill him. Do you understand me? I will shoot him down like a dog, and it will be your fault. His blood will be on your hands." Amelia believed him. She had seen him kill without remorse or hesitation. If he thought there was something between her and Xander, he would follow through on his threat, and an innocent man would die because of her. "I understand," she whispered. Winter came early that year, and with it, an isolation that was even more complete than usual. The ranch was snowed in for weeks at a time, and Amelia saw no one but Marcus. The small house felt like it was getting smaller every day, the walls closing in on her. She spent her days cooking, cleaning, mending, and staring out the window at the white landscape, wondering if this was all there would ever be to her life. Marcus barely spoke to her during those months. He seemed to regard her with a mixture of contempt and indifference, as if she were a piece of furniture that had turned out to be less useful than expected. In some ways, this was easier than dealing with his anger, but it also made her feel less than human, like she was slowly disappearing. Spring finally returned in 1879, the snow melting to reveal the valley once more. Amelia felt something in her chest loosen slightly with the warmer weather, as if she too were thawing after a long freeze. Marcus had business that took him to Denver for a week in April, and Amelia had the house to herself for the first time in months. She knew she should stay on the property, should follow Marcus's rules even when he was not there to enforce them, but something rebellious had awakened in her. On the third day of his absence, she saddled the old mare they kept for light work and rode into Florissant. The town was busy with spring activity, people happy to be out and about after the long winter. Amelia bought a few supplies, enjoying the simple pleasure of making her own choices, even about something as small as which thread to purchase. She was walking back to where she had tied her horse when she saw Xander. He was coming out of the feed store, and he stopped dead when he saw her, his expression a mixture of surprise and concern. "Mrs. Johnson," he said, glancing around as if expecting Marcus to appear at any moment, "is everything all right?" "My husband is in Denver," she said, and she heard the way her voice sounded tight and strained. "I am just in town for supplies." Xander nodded slowly. "I have thought about you often, wondered if you were well." "I am well enough," she said, which was not the same as actually being well, and they both knew it. They stood there on the street, neither quite willing to walk away. Amelia knew she should go, knew that being seen talking to him was dangerous, but she was so desperately lonely, so starved for any kind of genuine human connection. "Would you like to get some coffee?" Xander asked quietly. "The hotel restaurant is just down the street. It is a public place, nothing improper." Amelia knew she should say no, but she found herself nodding, following him to the small restaurant attached to the fluorescent hotel. They sat at a table by the window, and Xander ordered coffee for both of them. "I should not be here," Amelia said once they were alone. "I know," Xander replied, "but I am glad you are." They talked for an hour, and it was the most wonderful hour of Amelia's life. Xander told her about his childhood in Missouri, about growing up on a farm with 4 brothers and 2 sisters, about joining the Union Army at 17 and seeing things no one should have to see. He told her about coming west after the war, looking for a fresh start, for wide open spaces and the chance to be his own man. Amelia told him about her parents, about their small farm, about her dreams before her marriage. She did not tell him about Marcus's cruelty, did not say anything that might provoke Xander to action, but she suspected he understood anyway. There was a sadness in his eyes when he looked at her, a recognition of the truth she could not speak. "I wish things were different," Xander said finally, his voice low. "I wish I had met you before when you were still free." "I am married," Amelia said, though the words felt like ashes in her mouth. "That cannot change." "I know," Xander said. "And I respect the sanctity of marriage, even when I do not respect the man you are married to. But Amelia, if you ever need help, if you are ever in danger, I want you to promise me you will find a way to let me know. Please." It was the first time he had used her given name, and the sound of it on his lips made her heart ache. "I cannot put you in danger," she said. "Marcus has threatened to kill you if he thinks there is anything between us." "I am not afraid of Marcus Johnson," Xander said firmly. "I have faced worse than him and lived to tell about it. Promise me, Amelia. Promise me you will reach out if you need help." "I promise," she whispered, though she knew it was a promise she could never keep. When she returned to the ranch that afternoon, she felt both lighter and heavier than she had in months. Lighter because she had, for one brief hour, felt like a real person again, seen and heard and valued. Heavier because she now knew for certain what she had only suspected before. She had feelings for Xander Quinn, feelings that could never be acted upon, feelings that made her trapped situation even more unbearable. Marcus returned from Denver 3 days later, and life went back to its usual miserable routine. But something had shifted in Amelia. The spark that had been kindled months ago now burned a little brighter, and she found herself thinking about the future in new ways. She could not leave Marcus while he was alive, but Marcus was not immortal. He rode dangerous horses, drank heavily, and had a violent temper that made him enemies. It was not impossible that something could happen to him, and if it did, if she were ever free, she knew exactly who she would turn to. The summer of 1879 was hot and dry, and tensions in the valley ran high as water became scarce. There were disputes between ranchers over water rights, accusations of cattle rustling, and a general sense of unease. Marcus was in a perpetually foul mood, and Amelia learned to make herself even more invisible than usual. In late July, disaster struck. A wildfire started somewhere up in the mountains, probably from a lightning strike, and the dry conditions allowed it to spread rapidly. The valley filled with smoke, and for several terrifying days, everyone worked to protect the ranches and the town. Marcus was gone from dawn to dusk, helping to dig fire breaks and fight the blaze. On the 3rd day of the fire, Xander came to the house with 2 other cowboys. They needed access to their creek to fill water barrels, and they needed it fast. The fire was heading toward the Henderson ranch, and they were trying desperately to save the buildings. Amelia gave permission immediately, showing them the fastest route to the water. She worked alongside them, helping to fill barrels and load them onto wagons. No one had time for propriety or social conventions. They were all just trying to survive. It was near dusk when Xander pulled her aside, his face streaked with soot and sweat. "We need more help," he said. "The fire has changed direction. It is heading this way now toward your ranch. You need to evacuate." Fear shot through her. "Where is Marcus?" "He is on the other side of the fire, helping protect the Simpson place. There is no way to get word to him. You need to leave now, Amelia. Pack what you can carry and ride into town." She nodded, understanding the urgency, but as she turned toward the house, she realized that Marcus's lockbox was in the bedroom. He kept all his important papers there, the deed to the ranch, her marriage certificate, money. If it burned, he would blame her, would punish her for not saving it. She ran into the house, fighting against the smoke that was already starting to fill the valley. The lockbox was heavy, and she struggled to carry it. She was so focused on the task that she did not realize the fire had jumped the creek until she heard the roaring behind her. She turned and saw flames rushing up the hillside toward the house, moving faster than anything she had ever seen. Panic seized her. She dropped the lockbox and ran, but the smoke was thick now, choking, disorienting. She could not tell which direction she was going. Her lungs burned, her eyes streamed tears. She stumbled and fell, unable to get up. Then there were hands lifting her, strong arms wrapping around her. Xander had come back for her. He carried her through the smoke, moving with sure instinct toward safety. She buried her face in his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart, the strength of his body as he ran. He got her to his horse, mounted with her cradled in front of him, and rode hard away from the flames. They made it to the creek, splashed through the water, and kept going until the smoke cleared enough to breathe. Xander finally stopped, dismounting carefully and helping her down. They collapsed together on the ground, coughing and gasping for air. "Are you hurt?" he asked when he could speak. "No," she managed. "You saved my life." "I could not leave you there," he said simply. "Amelia, when I saw the fire heading toward your house and realized you were still inside, I have never been so terrified in my life." She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw everything she felt reflected in his eyes. He loved her. She had suspected it before, but now she was certain, and God help her, she loved him too. "Xander," she whispered. He reached up and touched her face, his fingers gentle despite the roughness of his work-worn hands. "I know we cannot be together. I know you are married, and I respect that. But I need you to know that I love you, Amelia. I have loved you from the first moment I saw you. And I will wait for you for as long as it takes. If you are ever free, if there is ever a chance for us, I will be here. I will always be here." Tears streamed down her face, cutting clean paths through the soot. "I love you too," she said, the words bursting out of her like they had been locked inside too long. "I love you, and it is killing me that we cannot be together." He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight, and she clung to him like he was the only solid thing in a world gone mad. They stayed like that for a long moment, just holding each other, knowing it might be the only time they ever could. The sound of horses approaching made them pull apart. Xander helped her to her feet just as Marcus came riding up with several other men. He took in the scene, his eyes going from Amelia to Xander and back again, his face darkening with rage. "What the hell is going on here?" Marcus demanded, dismounting. "I saved your wife's life," Xander said calmly. "She was trapped by the fire. I got her out. Is this true?" Marcus asked Amelia, his voice dangerous. "Yes," she said quickly. I went back for your lockbox, but the fire came too fast. Mr. Quinn got me out. I would be dead if not for him." Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, wanted to find some way to twist this into something sinful or improper, but there were too many witnesses, too many men who had seen Xander's heroism. To accuse him now would make Marcus look like a fool. "I suppose I owe you thanks then, Quinn," Marcus said through gritted teeth. "Though I question why my wife was still at the ranch when she should have evacuated with the other women." "There was not much time," Xander said neutrally. "The fire moved fast. The important thing is that she is safe." The fire burned for 2 more days before it was finally contained. The Johnson ranch survived with minimal damage, just one outbuilding lost, and some pasture burned. The Henderson ranch fared worse, losing their barn and several acres of fencing. Xander spent the next weeks helping to rebuild, working from dawn to dusk. Amelia saw him only once during that time in town. They did not speak, did not even acknowledge each other beyond a polite nod, but the connection between them was like a physical thing, invisible but undeniable. She knew Marcus was watching her more closely than ever, suspicious, despite having no real proof of wrongdoing. Life settled back into its grim routine. The summer faded into fall, and Amelia tried to accept that the brief moment she and Xander had shared by the creek would be the only one they would ever have. She tried to resign herself to a lifetime of being Marcus's prisoner, but fate, it seemed, had other plans. In early November, Marcus had to make a trip to Colorado Springs to meet with some business partners. It was a 2-day journey, and he would be gone for at least a week. Before he left, he gave Amelia his usual litany of warnings and threats, reminding her that he had eyes everywhere, that he would know if she misbehaved. "Remember, Amelia," he said as he prepared to leave, "you are mine. Nothing will ever change that. If you are thinking of doing something foolish while I am gone, remember what will happen. Remember that I will find you and I will make you sorry." "I understand, Marcus." He left, and Amelia was alone. She went about her chores, trying not to think about Xander, trying not to hope for something that could never be. But on the 3rd day of Marcus's absence, a rider came to the ranch, a young man she recognized as one of the hands from the Henderson place. "Mrs. Johnson," he said, removing his hat nervously. "I have a message from Xander Quinn. He says to tell you that you are needed in town. There has been an accident involving your parents." Amelia's blood ran cold. "What kind of accident? Are they hurt?" "I do not know the details, madam. Mr. Quinn just asked me to bring you to town as quickly as possible. He is waiting for you there." She did not hesitate. She grabbed her shawl and followed the young man to town, her heart pounding with fear for her parents. They arrived in Florissant just after noon, and the messenger led her to the hotel. Xander was waiting in the lobby, and the moment she saw his face, she knew something was very wrong. "Amelia," he said, taking her hands, "I am sorry. I did not want to tell you this way, but I did not know how else to reach you. Your father had a heart attack yesterday. Your mother asked me to find you." "Is he alive?" she asked, her voice shaking. "He is alive, but the doctor says it is serious. Your mother is with him at their farm. I have a wagon ready to take you there." The ride to her parents' farm took an hour, and Amelia spent every minute of it praying. Xander drove the wagon, his presence a comfort even though they barely spoke. When they arrived, Amelia's mother came out of the small farmhouse, her face drawn with worry and exhaustion. "Mama," Amelia cried, rushing to embrace her. "Oh, my girl," her mother said, clinging to her. "I am so glad you are here. Your father has been asking for you." Amelia went inside and found her father lying in bed, looking smaller and frailer than she had ever seen him. He was 62, but he looked ancient, his skin gray, his breathing labored. "Papa," she said, taking his hand. His eyes opened and a weak smile crossed his face. "My Amelia, you came." "Of course I came. How are you feeling?" "I am dying, girl," he said bluntly. "The doctor says my heart is worn out. I have maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks, but I am not going to get better." "Do not say that," Amelia protested, even though she could see the truth of it in his face. Her father squeezed her hand. "I need to tell you something before I go. I need to ask for your forgiveness." "For what, Papa?" "For pushing you to marry that man," he said, his voice breaking. "I knew, Amelia. I knew he was not a good man. I saw something cold in him, something cruel. But I was desperate, and I told myself I was imagining things. I convinced myself that you would be happy, that you would be taken care of. But I knew the truth, and I ignored it because it was convenient. I sold my daughter to save my farm, and I have regretted it every day since." Amelia felt tears streaming down her face. "Papa, I forgave you long ago. You did what you thought was right." "No," he said firmly. "I did what was easy. And now you are trapped with a man who does not deserve you, and it is my fault. Promise me something, Amelia. Promise me that you will find a way to be happy. Even if it takes years, even if you have to wait until that man is dead and buried, promise me you will find joy somehow. You deserve so much more than the life you have had." "I promise, Papa," she whispered. She stayed with her parents for 3 days, helping her mother care for her father and trying to memorize every moment. Xander stayed too, sleeping in the barn and helping with the heavy work around the farm. He was respectful and careful, never pushing boundaries, but his presence was a constant source of strength for Amelia. On the 3rd night, after her father had fallen asleep and her mother was resting, Amelia went out to the barn to thank Xander for all his help. He was sitting on a hay bale, looking up at the stars through the open barn door. He stood when he saw her. "How is your father?" he asked. "Weak," she said, "but in good spirits, all things considered. Xander, I do not know how to thank you for everything you have done. Getting word to me, bringing me here, staying to help." "You do not need to thank me," he said. "I would do anything for you, Amelia. You know that." She moved closer to him, and in the dim light of the barn she could see the love in his eyes, the longing that matched her own. "I wish we could have met in another life," she said softly. "One where I was free to love you the way I want to." "Maybe in the next life," Xander said. "I do not want to wait that long," Amelia said, and then, before she could think better of it, before fear could stop her, she kissed him. It was gentle at first, tentative. But then Xander's arms came around her, and he kissed her back with all the passion they had both been suppressing for so long. It was the most perfect moment of Amelia's life, and also the most heartbreaking, because she knew it could not last. They finally pulled apart, both breathing hard. "We cannot do this," Xander said, though he did not let go of her. "You are a married woman." "I know," Amelia said. "And I am not asking you to dishonor yourself or me, but I needed you to know how I feel. I needed one moment of happiness to carry me through whatever comes next." "What if you left him?" Xander said suddenly. "What if you just walked away? We could go somewhere far from here, somewhere he would never find us. California, maybe, or Oregon. We could start over." "He would find us," Amelia said sadly. "And he would kill you, Xander. He has promised me that. If he even suspects there is something between us, he will hunt you down and kill you. I could not live with that." "Then what do we do?" Xander asked, his voice rough with frustration and despair. "We wait," Amelia said. "We wait until I am free, if that day ever comes, and we hope that we both survive long enough to be together." "I will wait," Xander said fiercely. "I will wait forever if I have to. You are worth it, Amelia. You are worth everything." They held each other for a long time, and then Amelia forced herself to leave, to go back to the house before her absence was noticed. The next morning, word came that Marcus was on his way to collect her. Her father was stable enough that the doctor said she could leave, though he warned it might be the last time she saw him alive. Amelia said goodbye to her parents, holding her father tight and promising to visit again soon, though they both knew it might not be possible. She hugged her mother and whispered that she loved her. And then she climbed into the wagon with Marcus and left, watching Xander grow smaller in the distance until he disappeared entirely. Winter came again, and with it, the news that Amelia's father had passed away in his sleep. Marcus allowed her to attend the funeral, but he stood beside her the entire time, his hand on her arm, making sure she spoke to no one for more than a moment. Xander was there, standing at the back of the small crowd, and their eyes met briefly across the distance. In that look, Amelia saw everything she needed to know. He was still waiting. He would always wait. The months that followed were the darkest of Amelia's life. Her father's death left a hole in her heart, and the knowledge that she and Xander could never be together while Marcus lived was a constant ache. She found herself thinking dark thoughts, wondering if there was a way to free herself that did not involve running away. She had heard stories of women who poisoned abusive husbands, who arranged accidents. But she knew she did not have the courage for that, and she did not want to become the kind of person who could commit murder, even in self-defense. Spring of 1880 arrived, bringing with it new life to the valley. Amelia turned 23, though Marcus did not acknowledge her birthday. She felt ancient, like she had lived 100 years in the 5 years since her marriage. In April, Marcus announced that he was going to Denver for an extended period, possibly a month or more. There were legal issues with his father's business holdings that required his attention. He arranged for one of the ranch hands, a surly man named Briggs, to stay at the house and keep an eye on Amelia while he was gone. "Briggs will report back to me on your behavior," Marcus told her before he left. "If you do anything at all that is inappropriate, I will know about it, and there will be consequences, Amelia. Severe consequences." With Briggs watching her every move, Amelia felt even more trapped than usual. The man followed her around the property, stood outside while she did laundry, sat on the porch watching the road as if expecting her to make a run for it at any moment. 2 weeks into Marcus's absence, something unexpected happened. Briggs got sick, violently ill with some kind of stomach ailment. For 3 days, he was too sick to even leave his room in the bunkhouse. The ranch hand who cooked for the workers said it was probably something he ate, bad meat or spoiled food. For those 3 days, Amelia was truly alone and unwatched for the first time in years. She knew she should stay on the property, should follow the rules even without a guard. But the temptation was too great. On the 3rd morning, she saddled the horse and rode to the Henderson ranch. She found Xander mending fence on the north pasture. When he saw her riding toward him, he dropped his tools and ran to meet her. "Amelia, what are you doing here?" he asked, helping her dismount. "If Marcus finds out." "Marcus is in Denver," she said, "and the man he left to watch me is sick. Xander, I had to see you. I could not stand it anymore, being so close and never able to talk to you, to be near you." "How long can you stay?" he asked. "A few hours at most. I need to be back before anyone notices I am gone." "Then we will make the most of every minute," he said, taking her hand. They spent the afternoon together, walking along the creek, talking about everything and nothing. Xander told her about his dreams for the future, about maybe owning his own land someday, raising horses. Amelia told him about the books she had read when she was younger, about her dream of seeing the ocean someday. "When you are free," Xander said, "and we are together, I will take you to see the ocean. We will go to California, stand on the beach and watch the waves. I promise you that, Amelia." When I am free, she echoed, allowing herself to hope. As the sun began to sink toward the mountains, Xander walked her back to where she had left the horse. Before she mounted, he pulled her into his arms and kissed her with desperate longing. "I love you," he said against her lips. "I will love you until the day I die." "I love you too," she whispered. "Wait for me, Xander. However long it takes, wait for me." "I will wait," he promised. She rode back to the ranch, her heart full and breaking at the same time. Briggs was still sick, none the wiser about her absence. But that night, lying in her lonely bed, Amelia made a decision. She could not keep living like this, suspended between two lives, trapped in a marriage that was slowly killing her soul. Something had to change. Marcus returned 2 weeks later in a foul mood. Whatever business he had been conducting in Denver had not gone well. He was drinking more than usual, and his temper was even more volatile. Amelia walked on eggshells, trying desperately not to provoke him. It all came to a head on a hot afternoon in late June. Marcus had been drinking since morning, and he was in one of his darkest moods, muttering about failures and disappointments. Amelia was in the kitchen preparing dinner when he came in, unsteady on his feet. "You are worthless," he said without preamble. 4 years married, and you have given me nothing. No children, no sons to carry on my name. My father was right. I should have gotten rid of you long ago." "I am sorry, Marcus," Amelia said quietly, the same words she had said 1,000 times before. "Sorry is not enough," he said, and then his hand shot out and grabbed her wrist, twisting it painfully. "You are going to give me a child, Amelia. I do not care if I have to force you every night until it happens. You will give me an heir, or I swear to God, I will kill you and find a woman who can." Amelia tried to pull away, but his grip was like iron. "Marcus, you are hurting me." "Good," he said, pulling her closer. "Maybe pain will motivate you where nothing else has." He dragged her toward the bedroom, and Amelia felt real terror for the first time. He had threatened her before, had implied violence, but this was different. She could see in his eyes that he was past the point of reason, that he was capable of anything. She did the only thing she could think of. She screamed. The sound was piercing, desperate, and it startled Marcus enough that his grip loosened for just a moment. Amelia wrenched free and ran for the door, bursting out into the yard. She did not know where she was going, only that she had to get away. She heard Marcus behind her, cursing and stumbling. She ran toward the barn, thinking maybe she could saddle a horse, ride for help. But Marcus was faster than she expected. He caught her halfway across the yard, tackling her to the ground. "You will regret that," he said, his hands around her throat. Amelia fought, clawing at his hands, but he was so much stronger. Black spots danced in her vision. She thought, "This is it, this is how I die," and her last thought was of Xander, of the life they could have had. Then suddenly the pressure was gone and she could breathe. She gasped for air, coughing, and when her vision cleared, she saw Xander. He had pulled Marcus off her and was now standing between her and her husband, his stance protective, his hands clenched into fists. "You will not touch her again," Xander said, his voice low and deadly. Marcus staggered to his feet, his face purple with rage. "This is my property, Quinn, and that is my wife. Get the hell off my land before I shoot you." "Not until I know she is safe," Xander said. "She is fine," Marcus said. "We were just having a disagreement. It is none of your concern." "He was trying to kill me," Amelia managed to say, her voice hoarse. "Xander, he was choking me." Xander's jaw tightened. "That is it then. Amelia, get your things. You are coming with me." "The hell she is," Marcus said, and suddenly there was a gun in his hand. "She is my wife, and she is staying here, and you are going to leave now or I am going to put a bullet in you." "Shoot me if you want," Xander said calmly, "but I am not leaving without her." What you were doing is attempted murder, Johnson. There are witnesses." He gestured to the ranch hands who had gathered at a safe distance, drawn by the commotion. Marcus looked around wildly, seeing the men watching, seeing his crime exposed. For a moment, Amelia thought he might actually pull the trigger, might shoot Xander right there in front of everyone. But then he seemed to get control of himself. "Fine," he said coldly. "Take her. Take the worthless whore. See how long she lasts with you, Quinn. See how long before she disappoints you the way she has disappointed me." He looked at Amelia with pure hatred. "But remember this, Amelia, you are still my wife. In the eyes of God and the law, you belong to me, and I will make you pay for this betrayal. If it takes me the rest of my life, I will make you pay." Xander put his arm around Amelia and helped her to his horse. She was shaking so hard she could barely walk, but he supported her weight easily. He lifted her into the saddle and mounted behind her, holding her close. "If you come after her," Xander said to Marcus, "if you threaten her or try to take her back, I will kill you. That is not a threat, Johnson. That is a promise." They rode away, leaving Marcus standing in the yard, and Amelia did not look back. She pressed her face against Xander's chest and finally, let herself cry. Xander took her to the Henderson Ranch, where the ranch owner's wife, a kind woman named Martha, took one look at Amelia's bruised throat and immediately took charge. She put Amelia in a guest room, brought her tea and gentle conversation, and assured her that she was safe now. "That man is a monster," Martha said, examining the bruises. "What he did to you, trying to choke you like that, it is inexcusable. You were right to leave." "But I am still married to him," Amelia said miserably. "In the eyes of the law, in the eyes of the church, I am his wife. He has every right to demand I come back." "You were fleeing for your life," Martha said firmly. "Any reasonable person would see that. You stay here as long as you need to, dear. We will figure out what to do." Over the next few days, the situation became clearer. Marcus was telling everyone in town his version of events, claiming that Amelia had run off with Xander Quinn, that she was an adulteress and a sinner who had abandoned her marriage vows. Some people believed him, particularly those who were friends with his father or who had business dealings with the Johnson family. But others, those who had seen the bruises on Amelia's neck or who had heard stories of Marcus's temper, supported her. The town was divided, and Amelia found herself at the center of a scandal. She stayed at the Henderson Ranch, afraid to go into town, afraid of what Marcus might do if he found her alone. Xander was her constant protector, never leaving her unguarded, always making sure she was safe. "What am I going to do?" Amelia asked him one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "I cannot stay here forever. I have no money, no way to support myself. And Marcus is right that I am still his wife. Eventually, someone is going to force me to go back to him." "No one is going to force you to do anything," Xander said firmly. "I will not allow it. But what choice do I have? I cannot get a divorce. Even if I could afford a lawyer, which I cannot, the courts almost never grant divorces to women, and the grounds for divorce are so limited. Unless I can prove he committed adultery or abandoned me, I am stuck." "He tried to kill you," Xander said. "That has to count for something." "Maybe," Amelia said doubtfully. "Or maybe the judge will say I provoked him, that I should have been a better wife." "You do not know how these things work, Xander. The law is not on my side." They sat in silence for a while, both wrestling with the impossible situation. "Marry me," Xander said suddenly. Amelia turned to stare at him. "What, marry me?" he repeated. "I know you are still legally married to Marcus, but we could have our own ceremony, our own vows. And then we could leave, go somewhere far away where no one knows us. We could start over, build a life together. I know it would not be legal, but it would be real to us." Xander, I cannot ask you to do that, Amelia said, her heart breaking. You would be tied to a woman who is legally married to someone else. You could never marry anyone else, never have a legitimate family. I do not want anyone else, Xander said passionately. I want you, Amelia. Only you. I do not care about legalities or what society thinks. I care about spending my life with the woman I love. Amelia felt tears streaming down her face. I want that too, more than anything. But Marcus will never let me go. He will hunt us down, find us wherever we go. And when he does, he will kill you. He has said as much. Let him try, Xander said. I am not afraid of him, Amelia. I fought in the war, survived battles that should have killed me. I can handle one abusive husband. But what if something happens to you? Amelia asked desperately. What if he shoots you in the back, or poisons you, or finds some way to hurt you that you cannot defend against? I could not live with myself if you died because of me. They were at an impasse, both loving each other desperately but unable to see a way forward. The situation dragged on for weeks, then months. Summer turned to fall and still Amelia stayed at the Henderson Ranch in limbo. Marcus made no move to come for her, but he also did not agree to any kind of separation. He was biding his time, she thought, waiting for the right moment to strike. In October, news came that changed everything. Harrison Johnson, Marcus's father, had died suddenly of a stroke. Marcus would have to return to Denver to settle the estate, and he would be gone for weeks, possibly months. This is our chance, Xander said when he heard the news. We could leave now while he is distracted. By the time he gets back and realizes you are gone, we will be so far away he will never find us. Where would we go? Amelia asked. California, Xander said. We could go to San Francisco, lose ourselves in the city. Or we could go to Oregon, buy some land, start a farm. I have some money saved, enough to get us started. We could build a life, Amelia, a real life together. Amelia wanted it so badly she could taste it, but she was also terrified. What if he finds us? What if he tracks us down and hurts you? Then I will deal with him, Xander said. But Amelia, we cannot keep living like this, waiting for permission that will never come. At some point, we have to take our happiness into our own hands. Consequences be damned. Martha Henderson, who had been listening to their conversation, spoke up. He is right, dear. You cannot spend the rest of your life in fear. Marcus Johnson is a bully and a coward. He has power over you only because you let him. Take that power back. Leave with Xander. Build the life you deserve. Amelia took a deep breath and made her decision. All right, she said. Let us go. They made plans carefully, telling only a few trusted people. They would leave at dawn in 3 days, taking the stage to Denver and then the train west. Xander sold his few possessions and withdrew his savings from the bank. Amelia had nothing of her own to take, no belongings that were truly hers, but she did not care. She was taking the most important thing, her freedom. The night before they were set to leave, as Amelia was packing the small bag Martha had given her, there was a commotion outside. Raised voices, the sound of horses. Amelia's blood ran cold. She knew that voice. Marcus had returned. She ran downstairs to find Marcus standing in the Hendersons' front room, flanked by 2 men she did not recognize. Xander was there too, standing protectively in front of Martha. Where is my wife? Marcus demanded. She is not your wife anymore, Xander said coldly. You forfeited any claim to her when you tried to kill her. The law says otherwise, Marcus said. He turned to the 2 men. These gentlemen are lawmen from Denver. They are here to enforce a court order demanding that Amelia return to her lawful husband. One of the men, a stern-faced marshal, pulled out a document. This is a writ of replevin, signed by Judge Morrison. It orders Amelia Johnson to return to her husband's home immediately. Failure to comply is contempt of court. Amelia felt the world tilting beneath her feet. "No," she whispered. "You cannot do this," Xander said, stepping forward. "She is in danger with him. He tried to choke her. There are witnesses." "That is a matter for the courts to decide," the marshal said. "My job is just to enforce the order. Mrs. Johnson, you need to come with us." "I will not go," Amelia said, finding her voice. "I will not go back to him. I would rather go to jail." "That can be arranged," Marcus said coldly. "But you will go back, Amelia. One way or another, you are still my wife and you belong to me." Xander moved to stand beside Amelia, taking her hand. "I will not let you take her." "You do not have a choice, son," the marshal said. "Do not make this harder than it needs to be. Interfering with a lawful order is a crime." For a terrible moment, Amelia thought Xander was going to fight, was going to do something that would get him arrested or shot. But then Martha put her hand on his arm. "Let her go," Martha said quietly. "Causing a scene will only make things worse. We will find another way." Xander looked at Amelia, his eyes full of anguish. "I am sorry," he said. "I am so sorry." "It is not your fault," Amelia said, tears streaming down her face. She turned to the marshal. "I will go, but I want it on record that I am going under protest, that I fear for my life." "So noted," the marshal said, not unkindly. "For what it is worth, madam, I hope things work out for you." Marcus grabbed her arm, his grip bruising even through her sleeve. "Say goodbye to your lover, Amelia, because this is the last time you will ever see him." Amelia looked at Xander one last time, trying to memorize his face, the love in his eyes. "I will find a way back to you," she said. "I promise, I will find a way." "I will wait," Xander said, his voice breaking. "I will wait for you forever." Marcus dragged her out to the wagon he had brought, and Amelia did not resist. She climbed in, feeling numb, feeling like she was moving through a nightmare. As they pulled away, she looked back and saw Xander standing in the yard, and the look of devastation on his face would haunt her for a long time. Marcus took her back to the ranch, and for the first few days he was almost civil, as if satisfied that he had won. But Amelia knew it would not last. She had humiliated him, had made his cruelty public, had tried to leave. He would punish her for that eventually. She just had to wait for the other shoe to drop. It came on the 5th night. Marcus came home drunk and angry, and he cornered her in the kitchen. "You thought you could leave me," he said, his voice slurred but dangerous. "You thought you could run off with that cowboy and playhouse like some kind of romantic fairy tale. But I showed you, didn't I? I showed you that you belong to me now and forever." "Yes, Marcus," Amelia said quietly, trying not to provoke him. "You love him," Marcus demanded suddenly. "Do you love Quinn?" Amelia hesitated, and that was answer enough. Marcus's face twisted with rage. "You do, you filthy, unfaithful whore, you love him." He grabbed a bottle from the table and smashed it against the wall, glass shattering everywhere. "I should kill you for that. I should kill you both." "Then do it," Amelia heard herself say, surprising herself with her own boldness. "Go ahead, Marcus, kill me, because I will never stop loving him. You can force me to live here, you can keep me prisoner, but you cannot make me love you. You cannot make me be the wife you want. I will love Xander Quinn until the day I die, and there is nothing you can do about it." Marcus stared at her, shock and fury warring on his face. For a moment she thought he really would kill her. But then he laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "You want to be a martyr for love," he said. "Fine, but you will do it alone. Because I am going to make sure that Quinn never bothers us again. I am going to kill him, Amelia, and it will be your fault." "No," Amelia gasped. "Please, Marcus, do not hurt him. He has done nothing wrong." "He took what was mine," Marcus said coldly. "He turned my wife against me, made me a laughingstock. He deserves to die, and you are going to watch it happen." He stormed out, and Amelia heard his horse galloping away into the night. Panic seized her. She had to warn Xander, had to get word to him somehow. But how? Marcus had made sure she had no way to contact anyone, had isolated her completely. Then she remembered. There was one of the ranch hands, a young man named Tom, who had always been kind to her, who had looked uncomfortable when Marcus mistreated her. Maybe, just maybe, he would help. She found Tom in the bunkhouse getting ready for bed. "Tom," she said urgently, "I need your help, please." He looked startled but also concerned. "Mrs. Johnson, what's wrong?" "My husband has gone to kill Xander Quinn," she said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "He is drunk and armed and he means to murder him. Please, you have to ride to the Henderson ranch and warn him. Please, Tom." "I am begging you." Tom hesitated, clearly torn. "If Mr. Johnson finds out I helped you." "I know I am asking you to risk your job, maybe more than that," Amelia said. "But Tom, an innocent man is going to die if you do not help. Can you live with that?" Tom looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, I will go. But you did not see me leave, understand? Thank you," Amelia said, weak with relief. "Thank you so much." Tom saddled his horse and rode off into the darkness, and Amelia returned to the house to wait. She paced the floor, praying that Tom would reach Xander in time, praying that Marcus would not succeed in his murderous plan. Hours passed. Dawn broke over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, and still no word. Amelia was nearly sick with worry. Finally, mid-morning, she heard horses approaching. She ran to the window and saw 2 riders coming up the road. Her heart sank when she recognized one of them as the marshal from Denver. But then she saw the second rider and her heart soared. It was Xander. He was alive. She ran outside, not caring about propriety or caution. Xander dismounted and caught her in his arms, holding her tight. "You are alive," she sobbed. "Thank God you are alive." "Thanks to your warning," Xander said. "Tom reached me just after Marcus arrived." The marshal here happened to be staying at the Henderson ranch, wrapping up some paperwork. He intervened before Marcus could do anything. The marshal dismounted, his expression grim. "Mrs. Johnson, I need to inform you that your husband has been arrested. He attempted to murder Mr. Quinn here." Drew his gun and fired 3 shots. Fortunately, he was drunk and his aim was off. Mr. Quinn was not injured, and we were able to subdue Mr. Johnson before he could try again. Amelia felt like the ground was shifting beneath her. "Arrested? What will happen to him?" "He will stand trial for attempted murder," the marshal said. "Given the number of witnesses and the severity of the crime, I expect he will be convicted. He is looking at a long prison sentence, possibly even hanging, depending on the judge. Does this mean?" Amelia hardly dared to hope. "Does this mean I am free?" "Well, you are still legally married to him," the marshal said. "But given the circumstances, I doubt any judge would force you to stay with a man who tried to commit murder because of you. And if he is convicted and imprisoned, you might have grounds for divorce based on abandonment or criminal behavior. I suggest you consult with a lawyer, but yes, madam, I would say you have a real chance at freedom now." Amelia felt like she was floating. After all these years, all this suffering, freedom was finally within reach. The trial took place 6 weeks later in Denver. Marcus was represented by expensive lawyers hired by what remained of his father's estate, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. Multiple witnesses testified to seeing him fire at Xander Quinn, to hearing him make threats. Amelia herself testified about the years of abuse, about Marcus trying to choke her, about his threats to kill both her and Xander. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before returning a guilty verdict. The judge sentenced Marcus to 20 years in the territorial prison. 20 years during which Amelia would be free of him. After the sentencing, Amelia filed for divorce on grounds of attempted murder, extreme cruelty, and abandonment through imprisonment. The divorce was granted 3 months later in February of 1881. After 5.5 years of marriage, Amelia was finally legally free. She and Xander were married in March of 1881 on a beautiful spring day in Florissant. It was a small ceremony, just a few close friends, but it was perfect. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, when Xander kissed her for the first time as her husband, Amelia felt like she was finally, truly alive for the first time in her life. They decided to stay in Colorado rather than running away. Florissant was their home, and they had friends and community there. Xander bought a small ranch with his savings and a loan from the Henderson family. It was modest, just a few hundred acres, but it was theirs. The first year of their marriage was like a dream. Amelia discovered what it meant to be truly loved, to be cherished and respected. Xander was everything Marcus had not been, kind and patient and gentle. He made her laugh, made her feel safe, made her believe in happiness again. They worked hard on the ranch, building it up slowly. Xander raised horses, good sturdy animals that he trained with patience and skill. Amelia kept a garden and some chickens, and she began taking in sewing work from women in town, building her own small income. In the spring of 1882, Amelia discovered she was pregnant. She was terrified at first, remembering Marcus's cruelty about her supposed barrenness, but Xander was overjoyed. "We are going to have a baby," he said, his hands gentle on her still flat stomach. "A baby, Amelia, I cannot believe it. Are you happy?" she asked. "Happy," he laughed. "I am the happiest man alive. I have the woman I love as my wife, and now we are going to have a child. I have everything I ever wanted." Their son was born in November of 1882, a healthy boy with his father's dark hair and his mother's blue eyes. They named him William, after Xander's father, and from the moment Amelia held him in her arms, she knew what real love was. She had thought she loved Xander as much as it was possible to love someone, but the fierce protective love she felt for her son was something entirely new and overwhelming. Xander was a wonderful father. He would spend hours holding William, talking to him, singing to him. As William grew, Xander taught him everything he knew about horses and ranching, patient and encouraging even when his son made mistakes. In 1884, they had a second child, a daughter they named Grace. She was a tiny, delicate thing, but with a will of iron that reminded Amelia of herself. Grace kept them all on their toes, always into everything, always curious about the world around her. Life was not always easy. There were hard winters and dry summers, years when money was tight and they had to scrimp and save. But they faced everything together, and that made all the difference. Amelia never took her freedom for granted, never stopped being grateful for the life she and Xander had built. They heard about Marcus occasionally over the years. He was in prison in Denver, serving his sentence. In 1889, they received word that he had died in prison, killed in a fight with another inmate. Amelia felt a complicated mixture of emotions when she heard the news. Relief, certainly, that he was truly gone and could never threaten them again. But also sadness for the waste of a life, for the man he might have been if he had chosen differently. By 1895, William was 13 and Grace was 11, both growing like weeds and full of energy and life. The ranch had prospered, and they had expanded their holdings, buying the adjacent property when it came up for sale. Xander was respected in the community, known as a fair dealer and a skilled horseman. Amelia had become known for her beautiful needlework, and she sold her pieces to a shop in Colorado Springs. One evening in late summer, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Xander took Amelia's hand. "You ever regret it?" he asked. All those years of waiting, all the pain you went through. Not for a moment, Amelia said. I would go through it all again if it meant ending up here with you, with our children. You were worth waiting for, Xander Quinn. You were worth everything. He kissed her, and it was as sweet as their first kiss had been all those years ago in the barn. I love you, Amelia Quinn, he said. And I love you, she replied. In 1898, William married a nice girl from town, and by 1899, Amelia and Xander became grandparents for the first time. Holding her tiny grandson in her arms, Amelia thought about how far she had come from the frightened 19-year-old girl who had married Marcus Johnson. She had survived, had built a life of love and joy and purpose. She had children and grandchildren, a husband who adored her, and a home that was truly hers. Grace married in 1901, and by 1905, Amelia and Xander had 5 grandchildren, with more on the way. The ranch continued to prosper, and they were able to help both their children buy land of their own, establishing the Quinn family as one of the solid, respectable families of the Florissant Valley. As the years passed and they grew older together, Amelia never stopped being grateful for the life they had built. She and Xander would sit on their porch in the evenings, watching the sun set over the mountains they loved, holding hands like they had been doing for decades. I waited for you, Xander would say sometimes, squeezing her hand. I told you I would wait forever if I had to. And I found my way back to you, Amelia would reply, just like I promised. In the summer of 1910, they celebrated their 29th wedding anniversary, surrounded by their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. The house was full of laughter and love, and as Amelia looked around at all the faces of the family she and Xander had created together, she felt a peace and contentment that went soul deep. That night, after everyone had gone home and it was just the two of them again, Xander pulled her into his arms and they danced slowly in the living room to music only they could hear. Thank you, Amelia said softly. For what? Xander asked. For waiting. For loving me. For giving me the life I always dreamed of but never thought I could have. You gave me the same gift, Xander said. You are the love of my life, Amelia. From the first moment I saw you until the last breath I take, it will always be you. They had many more good years together. Xander lived to be 73, passing peacefully in his sleep in 1920 with Amelia holding his hand. She grieved him deeply, missing him every day, but she also knew how blessed she had been to have had him in her life, to have loved and been loved so completely. Amelia lived another 8 years, dying in 1928 at the age of 70. She was surrounded by her children and grandchildren, and her last words were of Xander, saying that she would see him soon. When she closed her eyes for the last time, she was at peace, knowing that she had lived a good life, a full life, a life worth waiting for. The Quinn Ranch stayed in the family for generations, passed down from parent to child, a testament to the love story that had started it all. And in Florissant, the story of Amelia and Xander became something of a legend. The tale of the woman who escaped a terrible marriage and the cowboy who waited patiently for her to be free, and the beautiful life they built together once she was. It was a story of patience and perseverance, of love that endured through hardship and time, and of the truth that sometimes the best things in life are worth waiting for, no matter how long it takes.